So hi everybody and welcome to today's webinar. I'm joined.
Hello.
Hi Alon. Alon is Alon Yafe is Yafe
Yes.
is senior, or are you a lead solutions architect at MazeBolt? Just to for anyone that hasn't joined one of our webinars before, MazeBolt is a cybersecurity company in the DDoS space. We do
The best one.
the
best
we
one.
do the best vulnerability testing. It's continuous and non-disruptive. So maybe we'll get into some details there. But what we basically wanted to do in this session was to look at the trends, what we saw in 2025, and how that's going to look in 2026. Just a couple of points before we dive in. So because MazeBolt does like tons of testing, over 230,000 hours of
Wait a minute,
testing
Howard.
data.
Introduce yourself. I
Oh.
want to know you, Howard.
Fair enough. Howard
enough.
Silverman. I'm the VP Marketing at MazeBolt. I've been at the company just over 2 years.
Amazing.
And just looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation today.
Okay,
We
great.
expect a lot of good stuff, interesting stuff, and a lot of value to our listeners.
Well,
Yeah.
let them be the judge, but I'm very optimistic. So we produce DDoS vulnerability data. We also actually had a survey in 2025, towards the end of Q4 25, where we surveyed over 300 security leaders and CISOs, and we've got some really interesting data there. And we're basically going to review 7 key trends for 2026. One final comment. I think most people in tech, at least, don't go a day or even an hour without thinking about AI. And so we believe that this is also the year of AI in terms of DDoS. And
It is.
we will take a look at that. So let's get going. Let's start with our first trend. And by the way, we in the show notes there will be an attachment to the full report, so you are very welcome to download it and dig into more detail. But we're going to give an overview of that report. So the first trend, botnets and IoT.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the botnet evolution, in simple terms, and then we can go further deeper into that.
That's a very interesting point, because when you talk about DDoS, right? What is a DDoS? The distributed denial of service attacks, right? So when it started, it was just a DOS, denial of service attack. So you can use like one host at the beginning to bring down a service, right? DDoS, DOS. The purpose of this attack is to bring down online services. The major markets, or I would say business organizations that suffering from this type of attacks are at organizations that needs online availability, the topest priority, right? So we're talking about BFSI, right? All the financial
Banking, financial services,
governments,
insurance.
By the way, today we see everyone are attacked, like insurance company, healthcare services, obviously financial gaming, everyone that is having online availability becomes a target. So when the first, DOS, denial of service attack started, you could use only one single attacking node, right? Someone could come, fire up their laptops, run some command, bring down an online server, right? Bring down a service, a website. And I saw that many times when I was working on the other side of the industry, on the defense side. Now we're working on the offensive side, very nice. And I saw those attacks coming. And then at some point, they figure out, hey, we're being blocked. Those attacks have been identified and blocked. Okay, so let's use multiple, an army of attackers. And then the botnet army started. Now you have, not one host, but thousands, sometimes even 250,000 nodes inside the botnet. Can be like 200,000 camera IPs or smart refrigerators, smart IoTs.
Okay.
As a zombie army, you can control from CNC command center, remotely.
CNC, what's that?
Command
Control center,
right? And then, you push the code, you control it, you let them know which command or which attack you want them to run. Everyone runs it immediately. But the main advantage now is that you don't have to use each one of them to send a volumetric attack like you had to use earlier. Now you can just spread it amongst everyone. So it's enough for everyone to send one packet or two packets at a certain amount of time. You still have the capacity because now you have a 250,000 cameras attacking, but less traffic goes from each one of them. So now the DDoS protection mechanism needs to put more efforts to identify the attack, not based
give me an idea of like how many botnets or devices are generating how much traffic. What would be a typical kind of
so that very depends on the attack style, right? So if you're talking about more sophisticated new attacks, I would say RPS based attack like HTTP flood, stuff like that. We saw a major, lately we see more and more bigger volume attack on that range, but before 2 years ago, 2 years earlier, we saw less volume, but it was still deadly because when you run a sophisticated DDoS attack, HTTPS flood, you're basically able to bypass traditional DDoS mitigation services or equipment in the network and actually get to the origin server. And sometimes you affect other stateful devices in the network, like load balancers, firewalls, right? So even with a simple 100 megabits or, 10,000 requests per second, right, that are not being stopped, not being identified, you can cause a real damage. You can cause disruptions because now the service is high occupied with kind of legitimate requests, right? What is an HTTP flood? Basically tells the mitigation systems, hey, I'm not just a network flood, I'm not just a SYN flood or UDP flood, I'm an HTTP request, I'm an actual user, and I mimic what the user have in their browser to my data, to my request. So now the traditional mitigation system say, hey, you okay? We will not stop you, go ahead, this is the origin server. The origin server suddenly gets 10,000 requests per second. Wow. It starts to consume its capacity, right? So now this server is busy delivering or serving these requests. Legitimate users suddenly have latency because they don't get quick response from the servers, right?
Okay.
So in a high level, I would say that's the major advantage of botnets. But as we go on in this, I think it's a podcast, right? It's not just a webinar. Kind of, I like this studio.
Just for everyone, we're actually in the Google Startup Studio in Tel Aviv. So, for full disclosure, we're enjoying a nice studio setting.
Amazing studio, and thank you very much, Google, for that. So as we go along this session, we will show you, and we talk about how exactly those attacks work, right? And what is the sophistication in this area. And I'm sure that in 2026, we just started this year. We haven't seen nothing yet. It's going to bomb you. You're going to see a lot of interesting stuff moving forward. And if you want to protect yourself on time, you might be a target of a successful DDoS attack. You don't want to be there. Okay.
All right. So we've looked at like botnets, and they're, if I understand you correctly, they're more adaptive. They're harder to detect and predict. But if we now kind of go to the next trend, which is the introduction of AI and how AI can teach botnets to be even more subtle, more precise, more dynamic. How is AI actually bringing more sophistication into this space? Let's start from the attacking mode.
Right. So AI basically affects this space in the... I would like to talk about two main subjects over here, two main points, but probably there are more. I will start with the first one is AI can mimic human behavior, right? We see that happens with robots all around, right? And with chat AIs, and you see AI agents talk to each other, trying to mimic more and more like human-like. Same goes for DDoS attacks. Now you got, before the AI got into the picture, a hacker would come, write a script in Python, in Bash, or whatever, like JavaScript, and then said, okay, send a request to this server. If you get the challenge, reply to this challenge. And if he got a new challenge he wasn't aware of, he was blocked. Now AI comes into the picture, says, okay, I want you to act like a real human being, like a real browser, and answer everything you can. And they got a lot of codes and LLMs and libraries, and they use all these technologies to be able to bypass all type of possible, I would say, challenges and mitigations that traditional DDoS mitigations have. If they're not using AI, it's very easy for AI to bypass it because it's like a human being. So this is one thing. You're going under the radar of the mitigation. You get to the origin server, bam, you bring down the server. That's it.
Why can't the DDoS protection kind of adapt to that?
They can. But they need to enable their own AI capabilities, like behavioral, for example, right? If you if the DDoS mitigation engine looks on the customer's network, the organization network, and try to analyze its behavior, now if it sees different patterns, now he knows I have something. Let's check what it is. If it can recognize some patterns, can develop a signature. If not, maybe some other type of challenges, right?
So let me like just pause for a second, because I think part of what we do at MazeBolt is actually create simulations,
right,
of attack simulations, right?
Right.
So as a defender, this simulation, what would you be? How would you be leveraging AI to help understand whether someone's vulnerable?
Same as I do without AI. I will validate my network all the time. I will make sure that, listen, if my defense can block AI, that's good, but I also need to check non-AI based attack.
Sure.
Right. Okay. Why? Because I want to I need to cover all of my landscape, right? All of my targets, all of my online assets. Why is that? Because it's enough for one attack vector or one asset that is not well protected to bring down the entire network. As I had an English teacher in high school. He used to tell us, one rotten apple spoils the barrel. And I like this sentence because that affects everything in life. If you are not doing a perfect job, eventually something will happen. You have a hole you didn't fix, it will expand and cause the damage. And by saying that, if I'm looking at DDoS, so it's enough for one asset to be vulnerable. Let's say I have my crown jewel assets well protected, AI capabilities, defenders, all of the best cloud protections and on-premise protection, but I have like a forgotten old SMTP or FTP server in my network, right? No one really used that, but it's online. I forgot to turn it off, and it's available on the internet. Suddenly it starts to get SYN floods, simple SYN floods, right? And I don't care because it's an SMTP, old SMTP server, I don't use it. And I don't have a policy to protect it, right? What happens is that to get to this server, this traffic needs to go through a firewall.
Right.
Every organization got a firewall, right? This firewall is now busy with this simple DDoS flood, SMTP flood. And eventually, if you won't fix it, you put in your firewall under danger. If the firewall goes down or starts to get very, very busy, the entire organization goes down. So I would say that I will validate all of my assets, make sure, and I should have visibility on all of my main, I would say, network entities in the network, understand what's going on at each time, and make sure that I'm fully aware of what's going on and I can block it. If it's not, I need to dig in deeper and understand what's going on. Okay? So in regards of AI, so this is one aspect. AI tries to mimic human being more and more to go under the radar of the traditional DDoS protection and get to the origin server. Another capability of AI is basically to do the hard work for the hackers.
Right.
So back in the days, like a few years ago.
A year ago.
Yeah. No, actually it was existed already a year ago, but a few years ago, if I wanted to create like very sophisticated DDoS attack, and in MazeBolt we have a research team. What they do is following up those real attacking groups, hacking groups, trying to get their real attacking tools, download it to our isolated lab, test it around. And then once we verify, understand how the attack works and how to mitigate it, right? We simulate it on our customers in a very safe way, non-disruptively. This is a whole patent, and I think we're not going to cover it here in this session, right?
Do you want to cover it a little bit? Why? What's the big deal about non-disruptive? Just give us the
big deal is
the elevator pitch.
So in order to understand that, we need to go a bit.
Do you want to cover that
earlier in the years, right? MazeBolt started the services company. We did red team DDoS testing.
Okay.
One of the things we understood is that red team DDoS testing is not enough to prepare your organization to be proactive, protected.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because red team DDoS testing are disruptive scenarios.
Right.
So you cannot run it 24/7, right? You need to get approvals. Mostly you run it once or twice a year, maybe 4 times, like every quarter. That's it.
Right.
So once you find vulnerability, now you need to wait another quarter in order to make sure it was fixed.
Right.
It takes time. And you're also limited in the amount of time you can run, like 3 hours, 2 hours, right? Depends on the organization, sometimes 6 hours.
End of the week, end of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
And now, so you cannot cover all the assets. You cannot cover all the attack vectors. And I want to remind you, in MazeBolt, we have more than the different 150 types of DDoS attacks available in bank of attacks. And we have more coming in the next version.
Sure.
Right? Mostly AI-capable attacks, right?
Right.
You cannot cover 150 different types of DDoS attacks in 6 hours or in 2 hours. Mostly it's 2 hours, right? So it's a more like this, the red team DDoS testing, as far as we understood, it's like more like to test your team capabilities, how they are communicate with each other, if they have visibility, if they can respond, right? So now you're in a responsive way.
Well, that's it's like reactive.
Right.
How do you react when something bad happens?
Exactly.
Okay, so what's disruptive? That's not disruptive. That's disruptive.
That's disruptive because I can cause you damage. I can bring down. Listen, we were working with banks in the middle of the night, bringing down their services. Suddenly, all of their ATMs stop working. Right. So it's a disruptive process. So that happens once, twice, maybe 4 times a year. You can't cover all the landscape. So what you can cover is make sure that your team is well prepared or prepare them some drills to respond to an attack. And then what happened is that we provided a report. The report shows, you have this vulnerability, but this you're protected. This is no, you're not protected. A week later, the same customer come in and said, hey, listen, I was attacked by a different type of a DDoS attack. Right? We didn't have time to test it. I went down for a few hours. So now I'm going to test it and I want you to verify that again. The attack that we didn't have time to test. So we figure out you cannot go like this and prepare organizations to be automatically protected to an attacks, right? If you're going to use disruptive way. So we developed our own system to run real DDoS attacks in production environment. It's important for it to be a production, not testing environment. To run 24/7. And the way we do that, we start to run the attacks automatic. By the way, everything is automated, right? So it starts, at a very low rate. And before it starts, we have this bunch of monitoring system all over the world, right? They're monitoring the latency, they understand what is the response time, and they basically mimic real human being and real users trying to access your services. Doesn't matter which service you run. And then once the system have this in place, we started to run low volume DDoS attacks, ramp up the rate until it know, that's the correct rate. Because above that, you will probably suffer something.
You're saying setting a baseline, basically.
Yeah, we're setting the baseline. Okay. Exactly, that's the word I was looking for. Now we know what you should configure or set in your DDoS protection systems. You don't need to bomb your network with 2 gigabits of traffic or 20 gigabits of traffic. Sometimes it's enough to run 80 megabits. Right. And you already see some latency start to fly in the response time, right? And we have those sensors all over the world, very sensitive to see that. So we are able to run the attack, not causing any disruption. And we also deploy some sensors in the network that sees the incoming traffic. So now we know which mitigation system or layer was not able to block the attack.
Right, got it.
So we have these holes, we come and fix it. Okay. So this is what we do. It's a very, and if by all means, if anyone wants to come for a demo and see how it works,
Okay.
we can do that.
We'll give.
Okay.
We'll advertise.
Because I'm
you at
not
the
sure I
end.
explained it correctly.
Let's. No problem. Let's keep.
Let's keep going.
Okay,
So AI, right? So they help you to do all the hard stuff. And why saying that? Back in the days, if you want to create like sophisticated DDoS attacks that can penetrate CDN protections, caching solutions,
Right.
or even on-premise DDoS protection devices that can bypass challenges, you have to write like a Python script, JavaScript. You had to understand real deeply the protocol itself, right? And then write it in programming, and do some testing, and make it better and better and better. And we saw the tools of the attacking groups, version 1, version 2, they got better and smarter, right? Now AI do all of this for you. All you need to do is to, do you know Perplexity?
Sure.
Right? So I can actually show you online what's happening. So I'm going to Perplexity. I'm just telling them, hey, I just want you to show me how a packet looks like for an HTTP request for the CDN, right? And it prints the packet for me. Amazing, right? And then I tell them, listen, Perplexity, okay, how can I bypass the CDN? Like, I want to get to the origin server. And then it explains to me, like, I don't need even to be a expert in that range, okay?
Right.
So how can I, just a sec.
Okay, so Alon is actually on a prompt here. We'll share, hopefully when we do some
we'll share that.
post-production, we'll share the screen.
Pass the CDN, right? And it says, oh, you need to pass the CDN so you can use the cache control header, and you can also use some kind of URL changing in the parameters. And then I ask him, okay, listen, I want you to create for me a multiple packets, let's say 100 packets, right? Each one after another going to bypass the CDN, going to the origin server. I just want to get the latest. I'm not saying it's an attack, right? If I tell him it's an attack, he won't give it to me.
Right.
I just want to get to the origin server. I want to get the latest, updated, non-cache content. Boom. I get all of these packets. And now all I need to go and copy that to my tool to run some automation. I can also ask Perplexity or ChatGPT, or ChatGPT will be more difficult to do it, right? But Grok, Gemini, ask them to do it for me. So I need a very basic, limited understanding of how network works, how system works. Right?
So you basically need an undergraduate degree and a little bit of knowledge to be dangerous. That's basically what you're saying.
Understanding the high level of stuff, how things work, and how to talk to those AI agents. By the way, it's a chat, right? It's just an example. I don't have to use just chat. I can use LLM by themselves and use the algorithm themselves to create the tools for me. Right? So it's very easy for AI to take what you want to do. Just need to know how to explain it, how to do it. You can also create your own, AI chats. You don't have to use online, because at some point, what I did right now, right, it's going to be online. People will start to do it. It will be blocked at some point.
Sure, of course. It's the cat and mouse.
Exactly.
That's the nature of the beast.
So what hackers do, they develop their own chats and LLMs and algorithms in their labs, right? And they ask them, go and figure out how this provider works, how, I don't want to say names here.
No, it's fine.
How this mitigation works, right? And how can I pass it?
Exactly. I just want to, let's kind of move on. So, when we combine smarter attacks with kind of geopolitics, we actually come across DDoS an enormous amount, because it's not necessarily about damaging business. It's actually damaging, in many cases, confidence in democratic, fundamentals. So tell us a little bit about, how DDoS is being used in the geopolitical hacktivist campaigns.
I think in 2024,
25?
In 2025 and also 2023, we noticed a lot of geopolitical actions, not only in DDoS, but also in DDoS. And sometimes they were using DDoS as a white smoke to do more sophisticated attacks, right? So now, picture that. You have a government online services network operations center, or even a bank network operations center or security, cybersecurity operations center, and you have all this screen over there, and all these analysts sit around, and they got alerts. Suddenly, boom, everything is red. You get alarms, and this service went down. This service went down. Everyone are busy in understanding what is going on. And I've been in some scenarios like that. While all of the teams are busy, and it's not one team, a lot of team busy, those hackers are getting through with another attack, not a DDoS attack, to steal.
So it's a smoke screen.
Sometimes. In other times, they simply wants to bring you down. And we saw that a lot with the war between Russia and Ukraine, right? And we saw other countries like Italy.
Sure. Also, I we've seen like NATO countries, you know, a lot more, you know, instances of attacks and, you know, elections, etc.
And you saw them on the Telegram chats, you know, on the channels, bragging around, we brought down the service of Italy and the service of Norway. And remember, I think it was 2023 or 2024, the entire air companies and of Norway went down, suffered a big attack, right? No flights, right? Only from DDoS. That's amazing.
So the key thing, you know, in terms of, you know, geopolitics, one of the key, let's call it enablers or motivators.
Oh, DDoS is a tool, is a weapon.
Yeah,
Is a weapon, officially a weapon.
It's timing. Yeah. Timing is it's like critical infrastructure that doesn't have to be transactions. It's also, you know, mechanisms for elections or for giving information to people.
Right.
But the key thing is that you can actually initiate now an attack where time is critical, where you know, it has to be, you know, at the time that a particular event is about to start or about to finish, and then that interrupts the kind of the normal business continuity.
I want to give an example. In Sweden, I think it was in 2020. Yeah, it was 2025. There was an attack on their main bank ID in Sweden. Okay, it's like application like Swish that is like payment.
Swift or
Swish?
Oh, Swish. Okay.
It's like in Israel, it's like Bit. Okay, it's like payment applications you can want to pay, and not only that, it's a bank ID. It's like the national service to identify you as a citizen, so you can get services. You know, like you want to get appointment for your doctor, right? You go to your national government website,
national insurance or some kind of social services,
and then you get the social services. So it went down for 3 hours. Okay, all of the bank ID, and that basically they were able to bring down the entire country for 3 hours. It was insane. And I was talking, part of what we do in MazeBolt, we also have some colleagues all around the world. I was talking to one of the peer colleagues in Sweden. He told me, and he's like, he has like a very important job in one of the big banks over there. And he told me after this incident, all of the major banks starting to race who gets the best DDoS protection in the market and the best DDoS testing tools, right? Because suddenly we understood, hey, it's a problem. The prime minister went out in the public in X account, said, hey, that's a problem. We need to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know?
I always find it somewhat ironic that actually DDoS is kind of one of the oldest attack methodologies in the book, but yet it's still a thing.
DOS is the one of oldest, but DDoS got developed from DOS. It's the same, but it's distributed.
Sure.
And that's the main thing what you just said, because it's not that the technology is not harder to use to protect against it. In the last decade, it was neglected by the DDoS mitigation providers, right? Because you see so many successful DDoS attacks. Hey, back in March 2025, X went down.
Right.
You saw Elon Musk. Hey, you're under DDoS attack. Everyone was celebrating. It took them like 48 hours to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And the reason for that was some kind of protection that didn't enable, I don't want to say the name of the provider. They used a big provider, everyone known, one of the best. It's not that the technology is not working. They just didn't use the correct protection. And they didn't test
maybe
it.
they put it a different way. I think it's more like it's avoidable, right?
Yes.
There's no such thing as 100% security.
Right.
I mean, everyone that's listening to this kind of podcast or webinar is going to say, oh, who can be 100%? But the thing is that there are some things that there are known knowns and there are unknown knowns, right? So there's things that you can prepare for. You can do vulnerability testing. You can gain better visibility so that you can actually preempt the problems.
Right. One last story, and then we can move on
to APIs.
Yeah, we met with I think a couple of years ago, or maybe even more. We met with some CISOs in Chicago, and we talked about this subject, and they told us, listen, they actually said this sentence, and I was amazed to hear that. It was 4 CISOs for big major banks. One of them is the insurance company. Says we feel like hostages in the hands of the DDoS mitigation providers. I don't know, what do you mean? He said, we pay a lot of money, sometimes millions a year, to get online availability and DDoS protection from these providers, but we can test it whenever we want. So we pay a lot of money and pray to God. We want to wake up in the morning with the newspaper with our names over it, right? Because we went down. So that's the main point. You need to validate what you have. You buy something, you need to make sure you buy what you pay for. Right.
Trust but validate, I think is a common term.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So, we can definitely see that the sophistication of attacks is where it's moving.
Yeah.
Something that, comes up a lot, around both our research, but also when we speak with customers, and that's security around APIs and applications. Tell us a bit about the shift, layer 7 application security and what's happening in that space based on what we've seen in the last 12 months or so.
So API security is something that happened not only in the last 12 months. It's something that shifted much more than the last year. But now I think there isn't any online organization that that doesn't have API service. Right? And then you got the race for API security. Now, when you're talking about API security, mainly most of the people, what they think about is how not to let hackers, and that is also a threat, right? To steal your information or take over or cross-site scripting your API attacks, right? API services. Not all of them thinking about how can I protect my API gateway or API services to stay up and running and not suffer from disruptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point they do get it, because if the app gateway gets loaded, not even by attack, but I need to make sure I have enough resources, I need to make sure that my filtering is working, my rate limiting is working, and now they start to adjust it. So mainly they start to invest in and adjust, and apply API security mechanisms against hacking and against theft and stuff like that, and penetration testing. Sorry.
Sure.
And now when we're talking about DDoS, you don't need much to cause a damage, because you simply mimic a regular API request. Simple as you just take the token if you want to do some authentication. Even if without the token, you're causing a load on the authentication application. So there are also DDoS attacks in the range of API. And if your organization heavily depends or even have API settings and API services that you need for your application, your services to work with, you must protect also against DDoS attacks on the API services.
So let's put this in business terms, because in my mind, this is a very common, I don't know if you want to call it attack vector or tactic, but
you don't have to be very sophisticated in that.
But it's damage isn't just about something going down, right? Obviously, going down is the maximum amount of damage, but there's a lot of damage that to a business that is not just about going offline.
Right.
Can you talk a bit about
think about cloud deployments, okay? And I'm talking about the big ones, right? The AWS, GCPs, Azure. So when you get requests on those cloud deployments, depends on how many requests per second, you also get high costs. You need to pay more to these cloud providers.
Right.
I was talking to one time to a CISO who told me, listen, I'm desperate and I want to do. And then what happened? I says, listen, I got burst attacks on my API services
Right.
in Azure and AWS. They last for 50 seconds, sometimes 60 seconds, and stop. So my mitigation system doesn't even have the time to start kick in, right? So they give me a huge amount of burst of requests per seconds. It doesn't really bring me down because they're stopping after 1 minute. But for this 1 minute, I'm being charged with a lot of cost for my services, because now I have many requests reaching in every 5 minutes. For 1 minute, like millions of requests, I need to pay for that.
So that definitely sounds like a hidden cost. I'm thinking also about disruption to user experience. So, for example, slower pages,
obviously,
timeouts, blocked access. This for
obviously.
One customer in the UK comes to mind is that payment transaction platform.
Right.
Every minute could be thousands of transactions.
Right.
Now, if there's a slowdown or a transaction doesn't go through, people aren't. That's not going to come back. That's lost revenue. That's lost coupon clipping, right?
100%.
So it's not just about a full blown. It's also about the interruption, the experience. Day
traders, right? Day traders, right? You want to make money from stock exchange. Suddenly it gets stuck.
That too, but
right?
Millions of transactions are being done every day in high street shops, right? So
if you open your application right now to your bank application, that works on API. At the end of the day, it's an API. Everything is API today, right? All the application sends API requests to their API gateway, and if that slows down, you feel that.
Sure. So I certainly think that certainly the API, the kind of web apps, every application on your mobile is an app that is making calls. It's collecting data. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily hitting a particular sensitive point, but it's something that can cause disruption. Abandoned transactions, lack of data fulfilling an app.
Right. If I want to look for a flight, Skyscanner or whatever, I'm not trying to publish anything, just to give an example, right? Behind the scene, it works an API. If their API gateway that manages all the incoming requests is starting to get slow, everyone will feel it. Right.
So maybe the takeaway, and then let's move to multi-cloud and more complex environments. But
you want to take it hardcore today, okay?
Okay, one second. So just to summarize, for me, DDoS isn't just about bandwidth. It's actually also about breaking user journeys and critical transactions. It's something that's when their normal business activities or personal activities, whether it's with getting something from a health provider, once that journey is interrupted, it's kind of a lost transaction. It's a lost experience, and people in many cases have other options, right? So they're not necessarily going to come back later. Obviously, some cases they have no choice if it's governmental, but certainly in the area of banking and transactions, it's just an interruption in or a reduction in quality of service can have big impact.
You remind me of a story. If we have time, I can tell you about that.
It has to be short because we need to get to our next trend.
I'll try to make it short.
Okay.
I was working in a different company as a defense team, and on the Mother Day, I don't want to say which country it was, the biggest flower shop got hit with a sophisticated DDoS attack under the radar. We didn't see it. And then what happens is their competitor number 2 got all the business. Now figure out who has the interest to see this attack.
The Mother's Day only comes once a year. Yes, certainly. Okay. Very nice. I like the story, and it was short too. So let's move to the next trend. So DDoS risk in multi-cloud and in edge environments. Can you just maybe give a quick introduction about the structural change, like how complex organizations on one hand are leveraging cloud technologies, on the other hand what's the payment that you need to make for having cloud operations?
So until recently, most of the organization Not so recently, but let's say until 2 years ago, most of the organization used their own data centers.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to go into cloud from both security reasons, right? Because now we need to share your certificate with the cloud, and a lot of banks don't want to do it. But with new technologies now they can't, and the new protocols, more safely. And also in terms of, hey, we don't want to be the first one who tries the new technologies, right? If something breaks, we don't want to be the one to suffer. Let's either test it and we come
Leading edge.
when it's, we come when it's ready. And I can see that in the last year or two, a lot of this is being changed. A lot of governments and organizations are shifting from data centers to cloud more and more. You know, last week you've been in some European country. I'm not going to discuss any names here. We were working with the main government agency about DDoS, validation. It's a big organization, like hundreds of thousands of employees, and then in IT infrastructure and whatever. And 90%, I believe, of their infrastructure is already in the cloud. The rest is on the way. So now they have a lot of complexity, and now you need to copy or create a new network topology similar to the data center, but in the cloud, that will provide you at least the same services you were providing earlier to your citizens and customers, and even with more technologies involved. And it's a big, only to set up all of this can take years. Depends on your amount of services you offer and the complexity of technologies you need to use. And you need multiple teams to work on that. That's not easy. It's a long process. And during this process, you unfortunately make yourself vulnerable to disruption attacks, to DDoS attacks. So you need to work very slowly, head to toe over there, make sure it actually not causing any problems while you do that. Now,
I mean, when you say you have to, you're developing a new architecture and you're rolling out, new services or that are cloud-based. So how would you? Obviously, it has to be incremental. What would you be like that customer? How would you be, advising them to mitigate the risk of, the bigger attack surface?
I would say
the increase in complexity.
100%. I would say slowly but surely, which means don't put everything on the cloud in one step. Take, specific environments, specific application types. Make sure you understand very well the traffic flow and also the operation flow inside the application. Put those, 5, 6, 10, 20 specific applications, services, put them on the cloud. Make sure it's operational. Only while after it's operational, you can disconnect or just make the previous one as a backup. And once it's over there, start to validate DDoS. These attacks, make sure that they're being blocked by the new mitigation system you bought. Because remember, when you go into the cloud, it's not enough to say, hey, I have Azure, I'm protected. No. Obviously, you have this basic DDoS layer, like DDoS shield in AWS and shield in GCP and DDoS protection layer in Azure for layer 3 and 4 attacks. Fine. But you also have those sophisticated or layer 7 attacks. You need to make sure you're being protected. And if you're not making sure, I'm going to be very, very clear here. You're going to go to get disruptions. Your service will go down. If you take the template as is, it's not good enough.
What do you mean template? Just expand a little bit. Are you talking about setup or configuration?
All the DDoS protection providers, when they provide you with a service, if it's not a VIP service, right, they don't set up out of the box the best protection level you can have. Right? They give you like a template of settings, more or less the same with everyone. Why is that? Because they're afraid to enable specific attacks, because some attacks are so aggressive, they can cause a false positive. They can drop legitimate traffic. So if they can't validate it and provide you a VIP service that actually validates it, actually works, they prefer not to do it.
Okay, so tell me, so how do you stop false positives? What would this large,
it's very
enormous organization, enterprise grade?
So I would say it's a combination of understanding the application, the online service, how it works.
You can talk about MazeBolt, by the way.
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
like.
yeah. I will. But when I'm looking on a new project, a new customer, and they want to understand how to prevent a false positive, let me give you an example even, right? We had a big 500, still have, a big 500 Fortune company that we work with very, very closely. And they have the best of their DDoS protections. And not only they have the best of their DDoS protections on-prem and in the cloud, if something happens they don't like, they switch it in a matter of days. Like, hey, XYZ, you're supposed to give us protection. It wasn't good. We're moving on to the next one. They already have multiple other waiting in line to give them their service. And we saw this happening. Once we got into this organization, we noticed the network is very laggy. When I'm saying laggy, our monitor, without even attacking them, our monitoring systems already recognized a lot of legitimate requests not being served correctly. The latency was high. Sometimes it was dropped. And when we started to investigate deeper, and deeper, because listen, the type of technology MazeBolt have is like a Swiss knife. It's very accurate. Like you get exact information, nowhere to confuse you. We got to a situation where it was very clear from all the reports and testing we did, hey, something in your network blocks real legitimate attacks. So we went with the DDoS mitigation teams, asked them, give us some visibility. They were cooperating with us, And then we involved the DDoS protection vendor, one of them, that is supposed to, because we got to the point we want to, we suspect that is what dropping the traffic. At the beginning, they said, yes, a lot of traffic is being dropped here, but it's attack. But I don't know, it's not attack. We started to investigate more and more and more, and eventually we come to a conclusion and prove they are dropping legitimate requests. So after they acknowledge that, they prepare a detailed report, and they had to summon like a big, important political conf call with VPs from their side, directors, they apologize. And we found out like in average, more than 100,000 legitimate requests were dropped every single day for a year. Right? They told the customer, we'll do whatever you want. We are apologizing, don't kick us out.
Right.
So when I'm talking about false positive, you need to make sure that when you enable a specific attack protection, you're not dropping legitimate traffic. The way you do that is constantly validating and monitoring. The validation triggers the mitigation, right? And it kicks in. And the monitoring makes sure that legitimate traffic is not being dropped.
Great. So I want us to take this to our next, it's a good segue into the next trend, 2 more to go, is the validation gap.
Right.
Okay. In other words, and by the way, this just reminds me back to the report, the CISO survey.
Yeah.
So out of the 300 CISOs surveyed, 1% of their total attack surface. That was the average that they were actually testing. So the reality is that
that's a lot.
Well, a lot to they test 1% of the attack surface. That's not
kidding.
No. Right.
I'm kidding.
And yet they still average. The average was like almost 4 incidents in the last 12 months. So it's kind of like an acknowledgement that you spoke about it earlier, but how do we overcome this validation or visibility gap? Because misconfigurations and vulnerabilities essentially are being left hidden. I mean, you don't even know.
That's the main problem, Howard.
Right.
No visibility. Because the DDoS protection providers can't show you what was not blocked. The only thing they can show you what they were able to block.
Right.
They don't know what they didn't block. That's this is what we solve, right?
Okay.
We put our points of visibility in the network downstream to each mitigation layer, and we show you clearly which attack was able to be bypassed, to be not being dropped.
Very nice. Okay, so I think you've definitely covered that.
In a one sentence.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, final trend. Trend 7: multi-vector and multi-layer assaults.
Oh.
So just tell us what does that mean in plain English?
So think of it in a way of, now I have, let's say, I'm going to use an army description.
Metaphor?
Yeah, metaphor, yeah.
Okay.
Let's say I have a bazooka, I have a shotgun, I have an automated gun, I have this Glock gun, I have a knife, all a bunch of weapons, right? Right. I can use any one of them to try to disrupt your ongoing daily process.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm hitting you with everything I have, and tanks, and helicopters, and
Sure.
aircraft, and missiles. So the same goes for multi-vector and attacks and carpet bombing.
Mm-hmm.
What attackers are basically trying to do here is two things. One is to overwhelm your network with high, because when you launch so many different type of attack vectors, it's like most likely it will be like a high bandwidth attack.
Mm-hmm.
And also trying to confuse your mitigation system. Sometimes it works because your mitigation system, we kick in with SynFlood, but you miss the UDP flood. Or
right.
Sometimes in the past, I don't know what's happened right now, but in the past, 4 or 5 years ago, we saw incidents where DDoS mitigation devices got choked because of carpet bombing attacks,
Mm-hmm.
right? The CPU got crazy, right? They had to reboot it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a danger. I'm not saying it isn't. But the good news is you can protect your organization from these attacks in a proactive way. You can prepare your mitigation to kick in even under these circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's all matter of how willing you are to run these tests and approach a proactive way to your cybersecurity defensive teams.
Cool. All right. We started with AI, and I kind of want to finish with AI.
Yeah.
You mainly were talking about how attackers can use AI to
Right.
Basically accelerate and kind of it reduces the entry bar. What about on the defensive side?
Right.
How is AI being added to the toolkit for the defense side of things?
So you said earlier it's like a cat and mouse game,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you take those algorithms, those LLMs, and you put them into the defense layer, and now you have a monster protection
Mm-hmm.
that can very easily recognize if, I don't know easily because I'm not an AI bot myself, but they can recognize if some bot attacks, even if it's mimic as much as it can a human being, it's not a human being. Right, in the past we had those CAPTCHA challenges,
Right,
had to
of
click.
course.
So now you have a more sophisticated one, but it will be a race all the time. So you need to create signatures, and before you're going to treat with AI, sophisticated attacks, you have much more protections to enable before, right? Make sure your network first, do the easiest stuff first. Protect the network from the non-AI attacks, and now, in parallel, continue to investigate and research and I would say, invest in putting more LLMs and algorithms of AI into your DDoS protection systems. And when I'm saying you, I'm talking about the DDoS protection vendors. I'm not talking to the customers, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But if you will look now on the biggest DDoS protection vendors, I just looked, this week, not related to this session, but because we had to do some other project. And I see all of them using AI protection style, like bot detections of AI and rate limiting of AI and AI management. You see they're actually offering those kind of stuff because they themselves understand if they will not protect against AI type of attack, not only the customer will suffer, they will suffer. Think about it. All the CDN providers, why do they suddenly offer in the last, decade, DDoS protection? CDN is content delivery network service. They're supposed to provide you caching solution, compression solutions, reduce the latency. What happened behind the scene is that those providers were attacked by red attacking groups, and now they had to protect themselves, right? So they invest money and buy technologies of DDoS protection and invested in settings, the core routers and systems to protect against floods. And then they said, okay, we invest a lot of money in protecting our core infrastructure and our services. Our customers get it for free. Let's make out a service of that. And suddenly you see those big CDN company provided, you want to get a basic CDN service? That's fine. No DDoS protection for you. Put it on a different infrastructure. But bear in mind, you might be down because we're not providing you any protection.
Sure.
You want protection? Pay us money.
Okay.
Also with AI.
Sounds like there's an opportunity here. I think we're pretty much out of time. We could go on, but let's we'll just have to do this again. So
fun times.
So Alon, I really want to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. We're in the show notes. We'll share the full report. I'll also share your contact details, if that's all right, Alon. If anyone wants to reach out to you, have a further discussion.
And also,
really happy to do that.
I think it will be knowledgeable for people to know that we have a monthly DDoS Trends report, right? That covers...
Quarterly.
Sorry, yeah. So, but you can get all of the reports if you go to our website, right?
Sure.
Sure,
MazeBolt.com.
Yeah.
Alon, thank you. And look forward to next time.
Yeah. We're going to prepare a very interesting stuff for next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.